I'm Lori Stone, and I'm going to be talking to you today about transglutaminase, better known as meat glue. So what is transglutaminase? Well, it's an enzyme found in our blood. It's part of our natural healing process, and it helps the blood to clot. And so when it's used commercially, it is taken from the plasma of pig and cow blood, or it is produced from bacteria that's found in soil. So with meat glue, basically it does exactly what it sounds like. It is a super glue for meat. And how that works is it creates an irreversible bond between two amino acids, lysine and glutamine. And so essentially it's creating this covalent bond between those two amino acids that's going to bind the protein together. So you can take lesser cuts of meat, scraps, and you can put them together and you can create a fillet. And it doesn't decompose, it doesn't metabolize, it doesn't digest. So where does it go? You know, your body is going to excrete some of it, but where does it go? That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that today. But what I am going to do for you today is a demonstration on how it is used, and we're going to take it from there. So a couple of things, some information about meat glue is that in order to gain acceptance of meat glue, the one study that was done was funded by its manufacturer, Hinomoto. And Hinomoto is also one of the world's largest producers of MSG and one of the leading producers of aspartame. So two chemicals that, if you know anything about them, you are already staying away from those. So that might be enough to make you think that you would want to stay away from something like meat glue. It does for me. So it's interesting because the FDA considers it GRAS, which is generally recognized as safe. But in order to do my demonstration for meat glue today, I've got to put on some protective gear. So we're going to get things ready here. So I've got some cheaper cuts of meat, some stew meat, and we're going to turn this into a nice fillet. So with the transglutaminase, because it is a blood coagulant, I don't want to inhale it. And there's actually a warning right on the label. So I hope you can still hear me okay. Let me get my gloves on. Now, in May of 2010, transglutaminase, well, I'm fogging up my glasses here. Should probably wait until I'm ready for that. So transglutaminase was actually banned by the European Parliament, and they recently brought back its use. See, so a main concern with using meat glue is that you are taking these externally exposed to bacteria pieces of meat, and you're going to create a fillet with all these external pieces. Now, many people don't like their meat cooked well done. They order it rare. And when you take meat that has been exposed to bacteria, so if you take a regular steak and the outside of it has been exposed to bacteria, you sear that, you kill that bacteria. And so the center of it being rare is not likely to give you food poisoning. But when you take something that has been used with meat glue and you don't cook it well done, that bacteria is still going to be alive in there. So it has a higher risk for causing food poisoning. Yet, in America, the main concern with it is the deception factor. Americans don't like it that they're paying for a higher end cut of meat, a fillet, and what they're getting is scraps glued together. So I'm reluctant to take off my glasses because that's also part of my protective gear today. And we're going to generously sprinkle on the transglutaminase. We're going to wrap it up in plastic wrap. But first, we're going to massage it into all the surfaces of the meat. And then we're going to let it work its magic in the fridge for about 8 hours. And then we'll have ourselves a beautifully meat-glued fillet. So here we are. It's been about 8 hours later. And I'm going to give you a few other interesting facts about meat glue before we cut into our beautiful meat-glued fillet. So there's hardly any research out there on the long-term effects of meat glue on living humans. It's used as a thickening agent in things like fat-free yogurt and cheese. That's what gives that really good mouthfeel that fat normally would. It's said to be used in fish, chicken, bread, pastas, and meat glue itself doesn't contain any gluten. However, it can make gluten products more allergenic. So now we're going to have a look at our fillet. So earlier we were talking about the dangers of meat glue and how you've taken all these externally exposed pieces. Well, a meat-glued fillet can have 100 times more bacteria than a non-meat-glued fillet. So the industry justifies the unlabeling of meat glue because it's used only during processing and not a part of the formulation of the product. We have ourselves a nice meat-glued fillet. The fact remains that the so-called processing aid is still there in your meat. As a consumer, I would want to know that.